Before we begin, leave a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Evelyn was at her limit. She had been working double shifts for a week, cleaning hotel rooms during the day and covering the night shift for a lazy friend who always had a new excuse. Now here she was, exhausted, drained, a zombie holding a mop. The VIP suite was the last one of the day. She just wanted to finish and go home. Moving at the speed of a sleepy turtle, she stepped into the luxurious bathroom. It was the biggest she had ever seen, about the size of her entire apartment. "Wow, this place is a palace. Who needs a bathroom this big? Does it have an echo?" she murmured, pouring disinfectant into the sink. She scrubbed, wiped, washed. Exhaustion had put her on autopilot, but the worst was yet to come. She bent down to clean around the bathtub, leaned her head on her arm for just a second, and suddenly felt her body grow heavier. "Just 5 seconds," she whispered, and then she fell asleep right there, resting on the toilet lid. John had just wrapped up an exhausting day of meetings. All he wanted was silence and a hot shower. As soon as he entered his suite, he took off his suit and tie, unbuttoned his shirt, and walked across the room straight to the bathroom, thinking only of the soothing steam. He opened the door without looking around and stepped inside, and that's when he nearly had a heart attack. "What the hell?" His voice echoed through the bathroom, almost shattering the mirrors. John jumped back, his heart pounded as if he were being attacked by a polar bear with a weapon. There, leaning against the toilet lid, was a woman in a hotel uniform sleeping in his bathroom. The shock was so intense that he almost threw his shirt at her like an exorcism. Evelyn, in turn, woke up to the most terrifying scream she had ever heard. She jolted awake, lost her balance, and fell to the floor, knocking over the cleaning supply bucket. "Oh my God, what's happening?" John stepped back as if she were a ghost crawling out of the drain. "Who are you and what are you doing in my room?" Evelyn, completely disoriented, widened her eyes at the shirtless man in front of her. Tall, dark hair, intense expression, furious eyes, and incredibly handsome. She blinked a few times, trying to process everything. Big bathroom, expensive soap scent, housekeeping uniform, the guest's room. Reality hit her all at once. She froze. Then her eyes widened even more as she shouted, "I didn't rob you, I swear!" John blinked. "What?" "I just fell asleep. Here." "No, that sounded bad." Evelyn raised her hands as if a police officer had a gun pointed at her. "I was just cleaning, and you decided to take a nap in my bathroom? Or is your cleaning technique about napping in guests' bathrooms too?" Evelyn stammered. She was in trouble. "It's not exactly like that. I mean, it is, but—" John pinched the bridge of his nose, trying to stay calm. "So my bathroom is a dormitory now?" "It was a very quick nap." "Oh, sure, just a little 30-minute nap on the toilet seat. It was only 5 minutes. Do you have a stopwatch in your brain or something, sir? I know this looks bad, but I work morning and night. My body just shut down." John took a deep breath. He wanted to be mad, he really did, but for some reason the whole situation was so absurd that he just couldn't. She looked desperate, her face flushed with embarrassment, her hair a mess, and staring at him as if her life depended on this moment. And then John did something completely unexpected. He crossed his arms and walked out of the bathroom toward the kitchen. Evelyn quickly followed. He stopped, turned to her with a serious expression, and asked, "Do you drink coffee?" Evelyn blinked. "Huh? Coffee, do you drink it?" "Yes, but what does that have to do with—" He grabbed a cup from the counter and handed it to her. "Try it." Still confused, Evelyn took the cup and smelled the coffee. She immediately made a face. "This is terrible." John raised an eyebrow. "You can tell just by the smell?" Evelyn hesitated. Yes." A curious glint passed through his eyes. John Scott, the man who never cared about anything other than business, was intrigued, and Evelyn, who just wanted to get out of there with her job intact, had no idea what was coming next. Evelyn was still holding the coffee cup like it was a bomb about to explode. John watched her with an unreadable expression, arms crossed, his intense gaze locked onto her. She had no idea what to do. "So, am I fired?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. John tilted his head as if considering the idea. "I haven't decided yet." Evelyn felt her knees go weak. "You haven't?" He took the cup back and looked at the dark liquid inside. "Before that, explain to me how you knew this coffee was terrible without even tasting it." It's just obvious," she replied, frowning. "It smells burnt and the beans were over-roasted, which makes it too bitter." Looks like someone tried to cover it up with sugar, but that only made it worse. John raised his eyebrows. And you figured all that out just from the smell? Evelyn opened her mouth to respond, but hesitated. Wait, why was he so interested in this? I swear I don't do this all the time. She tried to play it down. I just noticed. John was silent for a few seconds, watching her like she was a complicated puzzle he needed to solve. And then, out of nowhere, he stepped back and leaned against the counter. Perfect. Perfect. You're going to help me fix this problem. Evelyn blinked. I'm going to what? The hotel's coffee is awful. I've complained, but no one can fix it. If you can tell what's wrong just by the smell, then maybe you can figure out what's wrong with the other dishes, too. Evelyn let out a humorless laugh. Oh, sure, because that's exactly what a cleaning staff member does. As of now, yes. She froze. Sorry, but I just do cleaning. I have nothing to do with food. John shrugged. Now you do. Evelyn looked at him like he had just suggested she'd jump out of a plane without a parachute. I can't just suddenly become a food expert. But you don't have to, he pointed at the cup. You already are. Evelyn opened and closed her mouth, feeling more confused by the second. He had to be joking, right? But his expression said he wasn't. Sir Scott. Right. Look, I appreciate it, but I need my job. John frowned. And who said I'm firing you? Evelyn stayed quiet for a moment. Was this a test? She was sure she was about to lose her job, and now the hotel CEO was asking for her help with food. None of it made sense. This isn't a test, is it? Like, if I say no, are you going to fire me? John sighed, already looking tired of the conversation. If I were going to fire you, I would have done it already. Now come on, you've got a breakfast to taste. Evelyn blinked, then again, and a third time. What do you want to do? Keep arguing or just get this over with? She knew she should say no, but at the same time she couldn't ignore the fact that he still hadn't let her go. Maybe she had a chance to save her job. Evelyn sighed. Fine, but if this is just a plan to fire me later, I swear. Less drama, more coffee. Evelyn had no idea how she even got here. 1 minute she was arguing in the CEO's bathroom, the next she was sitting at one of the best tables in the hotel restaurant with a table full of fancy dishes in front of her. Dishes she was supposed to taste. John sat across from her, arms crossed. All right, try then. And tell me what you think. She looked at the plates, then back at him. You want me to eat all this? You work double shifts, right? When was last time you ate? Evelyn opened her mouth to answer but couldn't remember. The silence was enough for John to get his answer. Exactly, now eat. Evelyn hesitated, then picked up a fork and tried the first dish. She made a face. The sauce is too acidic. Feels like they used too much lemon to cover up something that went wrong. John nodded as if that confirmed his suspicions. Next, she tried a piece of meat and wrinkled her nose. Overcooked. And they used a seasoning that doesn't go with the dish at all. Another plate. Is this supposed to be sweet or savory? Because right now it's just confusing. John leaned back in his chair, intrigued. She didn't just notice the mistakes. She described exactly what was wrong, and for the first time in a long while, he was impressed. Evelyn wiped her mouth and looked at him. Okay, can I go now? John tilted his head. Have you ever thought about working with food? Evelyn laughed. You mean eating bad food? No, identifying it. Evelyn stopped laughing. What? You have a rare talent. Most people wouldn't even catch half the mistakes you just pointed out. It's just a silly trick. It doesn't mean anything. John stared at her for a long moment, like she'd just said the most ridiculous thing in the world. I bet people have said the same thing about you before. Evelyn opened her mouth, but had no words. He was right. John stood up, adjusting his sleeves. Tomorrow morning, you're coming with me to the kitchen. I want you to taste a few ingredients. Evelyn's eyes widened. What? And don't try to run. I know where you work. Evelyn nearly fell out of her chair. Are you insane? For the first time that night, John laughed. Not yet, but give it time. Evelyn spent the entire night trying to make sense of what had just happened. She should have been fired. In fact, any normal person would have been kicked out of the hotel immediately for being caught sleeping on the CEO's toilet lid. But somehow, not only did she still have her job, She was now caught up in some random plan to improve the hotel's breakfast. Did it make sense? No. Did she want to be part of it? Also no. But John Scott didn't seem like the kind of man who accepted no as an answer. So the next morning, there she was, dragging herself to the hotel kitchen, exhausted and mentally begging herself not to do anything that would get her officially fired. She pushed open the kitchen door and saw John standing next to the head chef. The CEO glanced at his watch, then at her. "You're late." Evelyn sighed. "If you're going to fire me, just do it now. I only got 3 hours of sleep." John smirked. "You'll survive. Now come here." The head chef, a tall, broad-shouldered man named Adam, eyed her suspiciously. "This is the cleaning lady?" He crossed his arms. "What is she doing here?" "Saving the hotel's breakfast," John answered flatly. Adam frowned. "With all due respect, Mr. Scott, my team is highly trained. I don't think we need a cleaner's opinion." Evelyn froze. She already felt out of place being here. Now she had to deal with a chef who saw her as a joke. John, however, didn't even blink. "I tasted the food yesterday. If your team was as qualified as you say, we wouldn't be having this conversation." The silence that followed was so heavy that Evelyn wanted to disappear under the counter. Adam clenched his jaw, clearly irritated. "And what exactly does Miss Collins have to say about my kitchen?" John gestured toward Evelyn. "Find out for yourself." Evelyn froze. "What?" "You said the coffee was terrible. Now tell me what's wrong with the other dishes." Adam let out a sarcastic laugh. "Great, let's hear what the mop expert has to say." Evelyn felt her face heat up. What an unbearable man, but if he wanted a show, she would give him one. Taking a deep breath, Evelyn grabbed a spoon and tasted one of the dishes. She chewed slowly, analyzing every flavor. "The scrambled eggs are dry, you used low-quality butter, and the salt is off." Adam crossed his arms. "What else?" Evelyn picked up a piece of bread and took a bite. "The bread isn't fresh either. It was baked yesterday or stored poorly. All right, and the juice?" She took a glass and sipped. She winced. "This is a disaster." Adam raised an eyebrow. "And why is that?" "Because someone mixed fresh orange juice with store-bought and added a generous touch of disappointment." John bit back a smile. Adam, on the other hand, looked ready to explode. "All right, Miss Collins, if you're so smart, what do you suggest?" Evelyn looked at him for a moment, then turned to John. "Can I speak freely, or am I risking my life?" John chuckled. "Speak freely." Evelyn turned back to Adam. "This is a 5-star hotel. Guests expect high-quality food, but breakfast tastes like an airport cafeteria. If you want my opinion, you need to upgrade the ingredients. Real butter, fresh bread, farm eggs." The chef clenched his jaw. "That costs money, and bad food costs customers." Adam turned red. John, on the other hand, seemed to be enjoying himself. Then it settled. "We'll test Miss Collins' suggestions." Adam looked like he was about to swallow a bucket of boiling oil. "This is an insult. I have years of experience, and this girl just came from cleaning." John shrugged. "And yet she managed to point out every issue with your food in under 5 minutes." The chef snapped his mouth shut. John turned to Evelyn. "Well done. Now go get some rest." Evelyn left the restaurant, feeling like she had just run a marathon, but for the first time she felt like she had done something important, even if it was just fixing breakfast. Evelyn was folding sheets in the laundry room when Zara burst in, out of breath. "Evelyn." Evelyn looked up. "What is it?" "People are saying you humiliated the chef in front of the CEO." Evelyn grimaced. "I just told the truth." Zara's eyes widened. "And he let you walk out alive?" "More or less." Zara grabbed her by the shoulders. "Are you sleeping with him?" Evelyn choked on her own saliva. "What?" "People are saying he promoted you because you two are having an affair." Evelyn buried her face in her hands. "I'm going to disappear under the sheets and never come out." But before she could do that, the laundry room door opened. Adam walked in. "Miss Collins?" Evelyn swallowed hard. Hi." Adam took a deep breath. "I wanted to say that I was an idiot this morning." Evelyn froze. "Huh? You were right. We changed the breakfast ingredients, and the guests loved it." Evelyn blinked, trying to understand if she had heard correctly. Adam was apologizing. He held out his hand. "Can I count on your opinion when we try new dishes?" Evelyn looked at his hand, then at Zara, who looked even more shocked than she was. With a sigh, she shook the chef's hand. As long as I don't have to wash the dishes afterward. Adam laughed. Deal. Zara held back a squeal. Evelyn didn't know how, but she had just earned a new role at the hotel, and she had no idea where it would lead. Evelyn still couldn't believe what had happened that morning. She, a simple housekeeping staff member, had managed to challenge the hotel's head chef, fix breakfast, and somehow survive the experience. Not just survive, she was now officially someone people listened to when it came to food. But that also meant the rumors were spreading like wildfire in the hotel halls. What started as Evelyn slept in the CEO's bathroom quickly turned into Evelyn and the CEO had a private moment in the bathroom, and by noon it had escalated to Evelyn is having a secret affair with the boss and now has free access to the kitchen. She tried to ignore the curious stares and the whispers behind her back as she changed the sheets in one of the rooms, but it wasn't working. So you're the hotel's new favorite now. The irritating voice of Aurora, one of the receptionists, made Evelyn sigh before even turning around. I'm the new official tester of bad food, that's all. Aurora crossed her arms. Funny. No one has ever been promoted this fast in this hotel. You must have done something really special to get Mr. Scott's attention like that. Evelyn rolled her eyes. Do I need to spell it out? I slept in his bathroom and instead of firing me, he made me taste bad coffee. That's the whole story. Aurora raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. Sure, I'm sure that's all it was. Evelyn took a deep breath. Look, I'd love to stay and listen to your crazy theories, but I actually have a job to do. Excuse me. She grabbed her cleaning cart and pushed it down the hall before Aurora could say anything else. The only thing she wanted now was for John to leave her alone. Hopefully, he had already forgotten his ridiculous idea of making her try more dishes and would let her go back to her normal life. But she should have known John Scott never forgot anything. Late in the afternoon, just as she was about to leave and finally get some rest, Evelyn received a message from Zara. Chef Adam wants to talk to you in the kitchen. You'd better go before he throws you into the soup pot. Evelyn sighed. This never ends. When she got to the kitchen, Adam was waiting with his arms crossed, but this time he didn't look like he was ready to attack her. Mr. Scott wants to see you in the restaurant now. Evelyn sighed again. He never gets tired, does he? Adam smirked. You're still breathing, so I guess not. Resigned, she made her way to the restaurant, where she found John sitting at a table, studying a menu with the same intensity as someone making stock market decisions. I should start charging for these consultations, Evelyn said, pulling out a chair and sitting down without waiting for an invitation. John looked up at her. Very funny. I try. He set the menu aside and looked at her for a moment. I have a proposal for you. Evelyn blinked. That doesn't sound good. You'll like it. I doubt it. John ignored her and went on. There's a major food event happening in Paris next week, one of the biggest in the world. Evelyn just stared at him, waiting for the part that made sense. Okay, and? I want you to come with me. She blinked again. I what? You heard me. I want you to come with me. She let out a laugh, not believing what she was hearing. Wait, wah! You want me to go with you to some fancy food event in Paris? Exactly. She laughed even harder. I'm a housekeeper, Scott. I clean rooms and scrub toilets. You want me to go to Paris just to tell you if a dish is bad? John leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his expression serious. You have a special talent, a refined palate, something most people don't have. I want you to help me identify the best chefs and ingredients. Evelyn shook her head, still in disbelief. I don't even know where to start with how crazy this is. First, I shouldn't even be here. Second, who says I actually know what I'm doing? I do. She opened her mouth to argue, but the conviction in his eyes stopped her. He believed in her, and that made her uncomfortable. I can't accept, John frowned. Why not? Because it's ridiculous. I don't know anything about these events. I didn't either the first time I went. She scoffed. That's different. You're a CEO. And you have a gift. Evelyn didn't know what to say. Had anyone ever said something like that to her before? Had anyone ever believed she was truly good at something? She lowered her gaze to the table. I have a job here. I'll pay you twice what you make at the hotel. Her eyes widened in surprise. What? It's only fair, considering you'll be helping me. She still couldn't believe this was happening. I can't just drop everything. You don't have to. It's just a 3-day. Evelyn bit her lip, trying to ignore the feeling that she was walking into a trap. But at the same time, when would she ever get an opportunity like this again? I need to think. John nodded. That's fine, but don't take too long. Evelyn left the restaurant feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Was she really considering this? Was she crazy enough to travel with John Scott? Maybe she was, but she wasn't ready to admit it yet. She spent the rest of the day trying to push the thought away. She focused on her work, folding bed linens, cleaning rooms, but every time someone mentioned John Scott's name, a strange chill ran down her spine. Had he really made that ridiculous offer? Her in Paris, as if she were someone important, as if she were someone who mattered to him beyond being just an employee who, by sheer accident, had caught his attention? Every time she thought about it, the most logical explanation came to mind. He was messing with her. There was no other reason. And yet, when her shift ended and she returned to her small rented apartment, she collapsed onto the couch and stared at the ceiling. The trip was in 3 days. 3 days. If she said yes, she'd be boarding a plane with John, going to an event where she knew no one, didn't understand the rules, and would probably feel like a complete fool. But if she said no, Evelyn closed her eyes and took a deep breath. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. For years she had been told she wasn't good enough for anything other than hard labor. No one had ever looked at her and said, "You're talented." No one had ever believed in her. And now John Scott, the CEO of the hotel, was saying she was special, that he wanted her by his side, helping him pick the best chefs and dishes. Even if it was a mistake, even if he was wrong, for the first time, Evelyn wanted to believe that maybe there was something inside her that was worth something. And before she could change her mind, she picked up her phone and typed a message. "Okay, I'm in." Seconds later, his reply arrived. "Great, get ready for the trip." She let out a long sigh. What on earth was she doing? The day of the trip arrived faster than Evelyn expected. She woke up before her alarm, packed her bag with clothes borrowed from Zara, because according to her friend, if you're traveling with a billionaire, at least try to look rich, and headed to the airport with sweaty palms. John was waiting in the VIP lounge, dressed impeccably as always. He looked completely at ease, as if this were just another ordinary day for him. Everything felt completely surreal. "You're on time. That's a miracle." Evelyn rolled her eyes. "I thought about running away, but my bank account convinced me to stay." John chuckled. "That's the spirit." Before she could overthink it, she was being led onto the plane. But of course, this wasn't just any plane. She had flown before, but always crammed into economy class, hoping she wouldn't end up next to someone snoring. Now she was on a private jet with soft leather seats, real food being served, and enough space to dance if she wanted to. "Okay," she said, looking around. "This is way nicer than the flying buses I'm used to." John gave a small smile. "Good to know I'm already impressing you." Evelyn sank into the seat and let out a sigh. "You don't need to impress me, Scott. You just need to make sure I don't embarrass myself in Paris." "No promises." She turned to look at him. "You really enjoy torturing me, don't you?" "One of my favorite pastimes." The plane took off, and Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the butterflies in her stomach. She was really going to Paris with John Scott. Nothing in her life had ever been this surreal. The hotel they were staying at looked like something out of a movie. Gold-trimmed furniture, sparkling chandeliers, luxurious carpets. Everything looked so expensive that Evelyn was afraid to touch anything. But the worst was yet to come. That night, John took her to an exclusive dinner before the main event, and that's when Evelyn realized just how deep she was in trouble. Everyone in the room seemed to belong to a world she would never be part of. Women in long gowns and dangerously high heels, men in tailored suits, all holding wine glasses and speaking French like movie stars. Evelyn, in her borrowed dress, felt like a complete fraud among them. John, on the other hand, looked right at home. He moved through the room effortlessly, greeting important people, chatting with renowned chefs, while Evelyn tried to act like she knew what she was doing. But then the moment she feared arrived. "Miss Collins, right?" A middle-aged man approached, smiling politely. Evelyn blinked. Yes. John mentioned you have a special talent for identifying flavors." She shot a deadly glare at John, who only smiled like he was completely innocent. The man picked up a wine glass and handed it to her. "Then tell us." What year is this wine from? Evelyn looked at the glass as if it were poison. John just crossed his arms, clearly enjoying himself. Don't look at me like that. This is part of your job now. Gritting her teeth, Evelyn took a small sip. The wine was strong, full-bodied, but there was something different about it. She analyzed the taste and, without thinking, said, "This was aged in oak barrels, but there's a fruity note. It must be a recent vintage, maybe 3 years old?" The man's eyes widened. "Exactly." Evelyn froze. "What?" "You got it right." John smiled, satisfied. "See? I knew you were good at this." Evelyn looked at the glass like the wine had just revealed the secrets of the universe. Had she really gotten it right? Maybe being here wasn't such a mistake after all. The dinner continued with Evelyn being introduced to more and more people, and with each dish she tasted, her confidence grew just a little more. By the end of the night, as they were heading back to the hotel, John turned to her with an amused smile. "I admit it, you surprised me." Evelyn scoffed. "I surprised myself." He stopped in front of her and tilted his head. "So, still think you don't belong in this world?" She stared at him for a long moment. For the first time, she didn't know how to answer. Maybe she did belong. Maybe she had spent too much time thinking she wasn't good enough. John studied her for a few more seconds before giving a small smile. "You've got talent, Collins. And now that I know that, I'm not letting you slip away." Evelyn felt a shiver run through her. John Scott never said anything by accident, and suddenly she realized this trip could change much more than her career. It could change everything. Evelyn woke up the next morning feeling like she was still dreaming. She was in Paris, in a 5-star hotel, traveling with a billionaire CEO who, for some inexplicable reason, thought she had talent. If someone had told her that a week ago, she would have laughed in their face and told them to get help. But here she was, lying in the most comfortable bed she had ever slept in, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out how her life had flipped upside down so quickly. Sighing, she got up and walked over to the window. The view of the city was breathtaking. Historic buildings, busy streets, charming cafes. Everything looked like it came out of a movie, and she, Evelyn Collins, was right there in the middle of all of it. A notification sound made her grab her phone. It was a message from John. "Breakfast at 8. Don't be late." Evelyn rolled her eyes. Not even in Paris does he give a break. But despite mentally complaining, she took a quick shower, got dressed, and went downstairs to meet him. John was already sitting at a table in the hotel restaurant, reading something on his phone. "Do you always arrive first everywhere?" He looked up and gave her a smirk. "Some call it punctuality, others call it efficiency." She sat down and picked up the menu. "And I call it unbearable." He laughed. The waiter approached, and John ordered a black coffee. Evelyn, on the other hand, ordered a croissant and hot chocolate. "You're not a coffee fan?" John asked, raising an eyebrow. "I like it, but we're in Paris. Hot chocolate here is practically a work of art." He didn't argue, just watched as she took her first sip and closed her eyes, sighing. "My God, this is good." John smiled, shaking his head. "You really take food seriously. You brought me here for that, didn't you?" "True." They had breakfast without rushing, and Evelyn noticed that for the first time, his company didn't seem so strange. It was almost natural. When they were finished, John paid and stood up. "We've got a busy day ahead. Don't tell me I'm going to have to try more mysterious wine," he laughed. "Today is about food. We'll be doing tastings with some of the best chefs in France." Evelyn's eyes widened. "That sounds intense." "You'll survive." She scoffed but walked alongside him. The tastings took place in a private room at the food event, where renowned chefs prepared dishes for a select group of guests. Evelyn tried dishes she never even imagined existed. Refined flavors, sophisticated techniques, and to her own surprise, she realized she actually knew what she was doing. She pointed out small mistakes, identified secret ingredients, and even suggested improvements that made a few chefs raise their eyebrows in surprise. John watched her the whole time, his gaze a mix of satisfaction and curiosity. When the event ended, they were walking through the hall when an elegant woman approached, tall, blonde, wearing a tight, expensive dress, with a smile that radiated absolute confidence. Evelyn didn't know who she was, but she immediately recognized the type, someone from John's world. "John Scott," the woman said, smiling. "Long time no see." John smiled politely. "Alice, didn't expect to see you here." Paris is my second home, darling. Ha! That must be a deep... And you? She glanced at Evelyn. Got yourself some new company? Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine at the way the woman assessed her from head to toe. Evelyn Collins, John said casually. She's working with me. Alice smiled, but Evelyn noticed the subtle spark of disdain. Oh, how interesting. And how exactly is she working with you? Evelyn felt her stomach churn. She knew exactly what that question implied. John noticed too and furrowed his brow. Evelyn has a special talent for flavors. She's helping me evaluate the dishes at the event. Alice feigned surprise. How curious. I could have sworn she was, well, something completely different. Evelyn clenched her fists. She knew exactly what the woman was implying. John noticed her expression and placed a hand gently on her back, a small but protective gesture. It was good to see you, Alice, he said, ending the conversation. Alice threw one last glance at Evelyn before smiling and walking away. Evelyn let out the breath she didn't even realize she'd been holding. John looked at her. Ignore it. She crossed her arms. You caught what she was implying, right? Yes, and that's why I shouldn't be here. John stopped, gently holding her arm so she would look at him. You're here because you have talent. What others think doesn't matter. Evelyn bit her lip, looking away. Easy for you to say. You're a billionaire. And you're smart, so stop worrying. She wanted to believe him, but part of her knew that people like Alice would never see someone like her as anything more than an outsider. Later that night, when Evelyn was alone at the hotel bar, she saw Alice talking to John across the room, and to her dismay, they looked pretty close. She shouldn't care. It didn't make sense to care. But when Alice touched John's arm and he smiled, Evelyn felt something twist inside her. She got up and left the room before she could figure out what it was. Minutes later, she was in her room, sitting on the bed, trying to convince herself that it was nothing, but her heart didn't believe it. And for the first time, Evelyn realized that maybe, just maybe, she was starting to feel something for John Scott. Evelyn spent the whole night trying to ignore the unease in her chest. She didn't care, or at least that's what she kept telling herself as she turned over in bed, trying to find a comfortable position to sleep. But every time she closed her eyes, the image of John and Alice talking would pop into her mind. The way the woman touched his arm, the way he smiled at her, how they seemed to belong to the same world. What was Evelyn doing there? She felt like a child playing in an executive's office, a background character in a movie starring rich, sophisticated people. And now that she was there, she felt like everyone was just waiting for her to make a mistake so they could kick her out. And maybe that's exactly what she should do. When the sun rose, Evelyn got up with a decision made. She grabbed her phone and typed a message to John. I think I'd better go home. Thanks for the opportunity, but I don't belong in this world. She stared at the screen for a moment before hitting send. Done. Now just wait. But the response came too quickly. Meet me at the restaurant in 10 minutes. Evelyn sighed. Great. She dressed reluctantly and went downstairs to the restaurant. She found John sitting at the table, drinking coffee with a very unhappy look on his face. Good morning, she said, sitting across from him. You think you can just send me a message like that and run away? I'm not running away. I'm being realistic. He crossed his arms. Realistic? Yes. Look, John, I appreciate everything you've done, but it doesn't make sense for me to stay here. He stared at her for a long moment before tilting his head. This is about Alice. Evelyn felt her stomach drop. What? No, of course not. John smirked. You disappeared right after you saw us talking. I was just tired. Collins, you're not good at lying. She rolled her eyes, grabbing a piece of bread and spreading butter on it, trying to act indifferent. It has nothing to do with that. I just think it was a mistake to accept this trip. Why? She dropped the bread and looked at him. Because I'm not like you, John. I'm not sophisticated. I don't speak French. I don't know how to act at these events. You saw the way Alice looked at me, the way everyone looks at me. John sighed, rubbing his face. So that's it? You want to quit just because a few snobby people can't handle the fact that you're more talented than they are? I'm not more talented than anyone. You are. Evelyn stayed silent. John leaned over the table, his gaze intense. You think I brought you here for nothing? I don't waste my time with people who have no value. She felt her heart race. He rarely complimented anyone, He rarely said anything that direct, and damn, it made her want to believe him. But then, John stood up and threw a card on the table. You have until noon to decide if you want to leave. There's a flight back home reserved for you. But if you want to stay, meet me in the main hall at 3 p.m. Evelyn looked at the card, then at him. John watched her for a moment before leaving the restaurant. She took a deep breath. Now what? Staying meant continuing to deal with a world that didn't accept her, but leaving meant admitting she was running away. And Evelyn Collins never ran from anything. When the clock struck 3, she was in the main hall. John didn't smile when he saw her, but there was something satisfied in his expression. Good. Now, stop acting like you don't deserve to be here, and come with me. And Evelyn, for the first time since she arrived, decided she was going to do just that. That afternoon's event was one of the most important of the food conference. John had meetings with investors, and Evelyn had to attend a panel about new talents in international cuisine. She was determined to soak up everything she could, listen to the experts, pay attention to the details, try to understand what made a dish truly memorable. But while she was making mental notes, she overheard 2 women whispering behind her. Did you see that girl with John Scott? Yeah, they say he picked up a cleaning lady and brought her to Paris. Evelyn felt her face flush. Must be some kind of whim of his, or maybe she has something special he likes, if you know what I mean. The 2 women laughed. Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. She wasn't going to let it bother her. She wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Instead, she turned around with a sweet smile and said in a friendly tone, "Oh, thank you for caring so much about my life. I'd love to continue this conversation, but I need to get back to the panel. After all, I'm actually here working. Can you say the same?" The 2 women were left speechless. Evelyn blinked, turned around, and went back to paying attention to the panel, feeling much better. She didn't have time to worry about small people. When she met John at the end of the event, he noticed something different about her. "What happened?" She smiled. I think I finally understand why I'm here." He raised an eyebrow. "And why is that?" "Because I'm good at this." John smirked. Finally. Evelyn felt light. For the first time, she was there not because he chose her, but because she chose to be there, and that changed everything. Evelyn never thought she could feel so comfortable in a place that just a few days ago seemed completely out of her reach. But there she was, sitting next to John, evaluating dishes with some of the world's top food critics, and for the first time not feeling like she was in the wrong place. She still attracted attention. That was inevitable. People still whispered when she walked by. They still looked at her like she was an outsider for being there. But now, Evelyn didn't care anymore. And somehow that seemed to bother people more than if she had just given up and left. The night came quickly, and John organized a dinner at an exclusive restaurant for a few guests. The setting was elegant, the food impeccable, and the wine flowing freely. Evelyn tried to follow the conversations around her, but realized she didn't have to try so hard anymore. She could already identify which ingredients were used in each dish. She could recognize the technical details of the preparations. She was learning, and John knew it. "You're more confident," he said after the waiter served dessert. "Do I seem more confident, or am I finally—" John smiled. "Both." She picked up her fork and cut a piece of the dessert in front of her. "What? You look surprised." "Just satisfied." "Why?" He leaned a bit toward the table, eyes fixed on her. "Because I knew you were good at this. I was just waiting for you to realize it too." Evelyn felt warmth rise in her face, but covered it up by taking a sip of wine. The dinner continued normally until Alice arrived. As always, she looked like she stepped out of a fashion magazine, flawless and confident. She also looked like she stepped out of a fashion magazine, flawless and confident. She sat down at the table as if she were the hostess of the night and shot a sharp smile at Evelyn. "Darling, what a surprise to see you here." Evelyn smiled back. "I'm not a surprise anymore. I'm starting to become part of this world." Alice raised her eyebrows. "Is that what you think?" John cleared his throat, interrupting their exchange of barbs. "What brings you here, Alice?" She grabbed a glass of wine, swirled the liquid in the glass, and smiled. "A friendly warning." Evelyn crossed her arms. "Oh, that sounds interesting. Please, go on." Alice's eyes rested on John. "You know this world is a game, and as much as you like to bring challenges to yourself, there are things that simply don't fit in it." Evelyn noticed the quick glance the blonde threw her way. John remained unfazed. "Alice, I'm tired of your little games. If you have something to say, say it already." The woman smiled, leaning slightly forward. "Have you ever stopped to think about how this might hurt your image? Bringing a cleaning lady to Paris, introducing her as if she's some kind of expert? People talk, John, and believe me, not everyone is happy about it." Evelyn felt her blood boil. But before she could respond, John spoke up. "Who cares about what they say?" Alice laughed, as if he were too naive. "You, darling. Deep down, you've always cared. You wouldn't have gotten where you are if you didn't know how to play this game." John held her gaze for a moment and then smiled slightly. "Funny, I always thought the game was about talent, and Evelyn has that in spades." Alice rolled her eyes. "You really think that's enough?" Ellen, who had been holding herself back until then, decided it was time to speak up. "Alice, let me ask you something." The blonde stared at her, surprised that she was jumping into the conversation so directly. "What exactly bothers you so much? The fact that I'm here, or the fact that you can't bring me down?" The silence that followed was almost palpable. Alice briefly hardened her expression but quickly recovered with a smile. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" "I am smart, and you know that." John watched the exchange with a glint of amusement in his eyes. Alice took a deep breath and looked at him again. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you." She stood up, adjusted her dress, and walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Evelyn sighed and picked up her glass of wine. "If she's going to be a recurring problem, I'll need a raise." John laughed, grabbing his own glass and raising it. "You're already negotiating salary. I'm learning fast." He smiled and they toasted, but Evelyn knew this wasn't over. Alice wasn't the kind of woman to just accept losing, and somehow Evelyn felt like this was just the first visible threat. Because if there was one thing she had learned about this world, it was that enemies never attacked head-on. They waited, they planned, and when you least expected it, they brought you down. Evelyn wasn't going to let that happen. She would fight. Evelyn noticed something had changed after that night. It wasn't just Alice. The whole atmosphere around her seemed different. Before, people looked at her with curiosity, as if waiting for her to fail. Now, the hostility was open. She had become a problem, and it didn't take long for her to feel it in her bones. The next day, at an exclusive food event, she and John entered the hall, and immediately the whispers started. But this time it wasn't just quiet mutterings. People were speaking openly. "I heard she was a maid at his hotel." He brought an amateur to Paris and pretended she was an expert. "Of course, there's another reason she's here." Evelyn felt her anger rise, but she tried to stay calm. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her lose control. John, on the other hand, wasn't calm at all. He gritted his teeth and shot a hard look at the people around them, who quickly turned their eyes away, pretending they weren't gossiping. "Collins, ignore them." "Easy for you to say." He looked at her, his tone firm. "You want to prove you belong here? Then act like you don't care about these idiots. The only way to win this game is not to play by their rules." Evelyn took a deep breath. He was right. If she acted like those words mattered, she'd be proving they were right. She lifted her chin, ignored the stares, and walked confidently through the room beside John. But the real surprise of the night came when they were introduced to one of the world's top food critics, David Morrow. "Mr. Scott, a pleasure to see you again." The man, an elderly Frenchman with sharp eyes, shook John's hand before turning to Evelyn. "And you must be Evelyn Collins." She blinked, surprised. "You've heard of me?" "Oh, ma chère, the whole of Paris has heard of you." John hid a smile while Evelyn tried to mask her shock. "The whole of Paris?" Morrow laughed at her expression. "People love a scandal, especially when it challenges the system, but I prefer facts." He handed Evelyn a tasting plate. "So tell me, what do you think of this dish?" Her heart raced. Everyone around them stopped to watch. She picked up her fork, tasted the food, and closed her eyes, analyzing every flavor. She took a deep breath and said confidently, "The dish is technically flawless, but it's predictable. The sauce is classic, but it's missing a bit of freshness, maybe a citrusy touch to balance the richness." Silence. Evelyn held her breath, waiting for laughs or mocking looks, but Morrow smiled. "Interesting." She blinked. "Interesting how?" He handed the plate back to the waiter and crossed his arms. "Because you're right." More silence. This time there were no mocking eyes. There was respect. John smiled, pleased. "I told you she was good." Morrow nodded, looking impressed. "Mademoiselle Collins, I'll be watching your career with great interest." He walked away, and Evelyn finally exhaled, not even realizing she'd been holding her breath. John leaned in close to her and whispered, "Now they know you're not playing around." She didn't know if she felt relief or if more weight was on her shoulders, but for the first time she felt like she'd won a battle. The problem was, when you start winning a dangerous game, people play dirtier, and Evelyn had no idea what was about to happen. The next morning she received a message from an unknown number. "If you want to know the truth about John Scott, come to the hotel bar, 3 p.m., alone." She frowned. What the hell was that? She immediately forwarded the message to John, but the response was quick and unexpected. "Don't go." Evelyn looked at her phone, feeling a shiver run down her spine. If John didn't want her to go, it meant there was something there, and she needed to find out. So at 3 p.m. she was in the hotel bar, waiting. Then Alice showed up. "Oh, so you came?" Alice showed up. "I'm curious." Alice sat down and grabbed a glass of wine. "You're smart, Collins, but you still don't know this world. And you think you're going to teach me?" The blonde laughed, shaking her head. "I don't need to teach you anything. I just need to show you something." She took her phone, swiped the screen, and turned it to Evelyn. It was a picture of John with Alice, what seemed to be a romantic dinner. Evelyn felt her stomach drop. "What's this?" "A dinner, dear. You think you're the first woman John picks up and brings to Paris?" Evelyn pressed her lips together. "What do you mean by that?" Alice smiled, leaning over the table. "Don't you get it? You're just a whim to him." Evelyn wanted to laugh. She knew Alice was manipulative. She knew she wanted her to doubt John. But on the other hand, why had he never mentioned Alice? Why had he never explained what their relationship was? Alice noticed the hesitation and smiled. "Leave while you still can, before he discards you." Evelyn stood up, grabbing her bag. "Thanks for the concern, Alice, but if John wants to discard me, he'll have to face me and say it to my face." She left without looking back. But her heart was racing, because for the first time, a doubt had been planted, and she needed to know the truth. That night, when she returned to the hotel, John was waiting for her in the hallway. "I told you not to go." Evelyn crossed her arms. "And I went anyway." His eyes sparkled with a mix of frustration and amusement. "I don't know if I admire you or want to lock you in a room until this trip is over." "Good luck trying." He sighed and rubbed his neck. "What did she say to you?" Evelyn watched him for a moment before speaking. "That I'm just a whim of yours." John froze. She noticed the subtle clench of his jaw, but he quickly regained his composure. "And you believed it?" She hesitated. "I want to hear it from you." He stared at her for a long moment before stepping forward. "Collins, if I wanted any woman by my side, I would have chosen one who didn't challenge me all the time." Her heart skipped a beat. "So what am I to you?" John looked at her as if the question was ridiculous. "You're the woman who makes me break every rule I've set for myself." Evelyn felt the air leave her, but before she could respond, he leaned in a little closer and whispered, "And that scares me more than anything." She was speechless. Because of all the answers she had imagined, that was the one she didn't expect. John Scott, the serious and methodical CEO, had just admitted that she completely messed up his life. The worst part? Evelyn knew he was telling the truth, but instead of feeling happy, a wave of confusion washed over her. She never planned this. She never wanted to fall for someone like him, and now there she was, standing in front of him, not knowing what to do. John looked at her like he was waiting for a response, but she just couldn't speak. So after what felt like long seconds of silence, he stepped back. "You'd better get some rest." His voice was controlled, but Evelyn noticed something different in his tone. Disappointment. And it hit her like a punch. John was never one to show emotions, but now he opened up to her, and she just froze. Without saying another word, he turned and walked down the hallway, leaving Evelyn alone with her chaotic thoughts. She entered the room, locked the door, and threw herself on the bed, running her hands over her face. What was happening to her? She'd never had a serious relationship. She never allowed herself to feel anything for anyone, because she knew, in the end, people always left. That had been her life, her entire life. And now John showed up, messed everything up, and wanted her to trust him. It was scary, but at the same time, her heart didn't want to run away, and that scared her even more. The next day, Evelyn tried to act normal. She got dressed, had breakfast alone, and headed to the food event as if nothing had happened. But the truth was, everything had changed. John didn't show up for breakfast, he didn't send any messages, and for the first time, Evelyn realized how much she missed his presence. The morning dragged on. She attended a few tastings, tried to ignore the stares from others, and pretended she wasn't hoping to see John any moment. But he didn't show up until, in the late afternoon, the inevitable happened. She was in the main hall analyzing a dish when she heard a woman's voice beside her. "Looks like someone's been left out." Evelyn closed her eyes for a second before turning around. Alice was there, wearing a victorious smile. "What do you want now?" "Just checking on you after your conversation with John last night. He seems pretty distant." Evelyn crossed her arms, feeling her blood boil. "What do you mean by that?" Alice gave a sideways smile. "Oh, sweetie, you really thought he was going to chase after you? John's not the type to wait for anyone. If you don't want to play the game, he'll find someone who will." Evelyn felt a tightness in her chest, but she kept her expression steady. "You seem really concerned about me." "Just realistic, or maybe you're worried because you realize that this time John chose someone he can't control." Alice narrowed her eyes. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, I do. And you know what? I might not know where this is going, but at least I'm not spending my days trying to manipulate others to feel superior." Alice let out a short laugh. "Do you really think he cares about you?" Evelyn held back her anger and took a step forward. "I know he cares, but unlike you, I don't need to prove anything to anyone." Before Alice could respond, Evelyn turned and walked out of the room, head held high. She might not know everything about John, but she knew he wasn't like Alice. And suddenly she realized she didn't want to run anymore. She wanted to face this head on. That night, Evelyn couldn't stay still. She knew where John was, she knew he was at the hotel's restaurant having dinner with some investors, and she knew she needed to talk to him. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed a coat and left the room, walking with determination to the restaurant. As soon as she entered, she saw him. John was sitting at the main table, talking to a few men in suits. He looked serious, focused on the conversation, but then, as if he felt her presence, his eyes met hers, and in that moment, the world around them disappeared. Evelyn didn't know if it was her walking or if it was him. She just realized when they were standing face to face, staring at each other in silence. "We need to talk," she said straightforward. John studied her face for a moment before turning to the investors. "Excuse me, gentlemen." And then, without hesitation, he took Evelyn's hand and led her out of there. They walked in silence through the hotel corridors until they reached the private balcony where they finally stopped. The cold night air brushed against Evelyn's skin, but she didn't care because all that mattered was the man standing in front of her. John put his hands in his pockets and watched her. "What's going on?" Evelyn took a deep breath. "You were right." He furrowed his brow. "About what?" "About me. About me always running away." He stayed silent, waiting. Evelyn looked at the sky for a moment before meeting his eyes again. "I never let anyone get close to me because I was always afraid that in the end, people would leave. But you," she swallowed, "you made me want to stay." John didn't move, but something in his eyes changed. "I tried to convince myself that it didn't mean anything, but it does. And as much as that scares me, I don't want to run anymore." The silence between them seemed to carry the weight of the world. Without saying a word, John took a step forward and kissed her. It was an intense kiss, filled with everything that had been held back between them for so long. Evelyn felt his hands holding her face, his lips pressing against hers with an urgency that made her forget everything. Forget the hotel, forget Paris, forget the world. The only thing that existed in that moment was him. When they pulled away, Evelyn's heart was still racing. John rested his forehead against hers and smiled slightly. "Finally," she laughed, feeling a warm sensation in her chest. Finally. But deep down, Evelyn knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning, and she was ready for whatever came next. Evelyn couldn't stop smiling. Ever since John kissed her, everything around her seemed different, like somehow the world had changed color. She never imagined she'd be here. She never imagined she'd fall for someone like John Scott. But it happened, and for the first time she didn't want to run away. That morning, when she went downstairs for breakfast, John was already there, sitting at a table reserved for them. "Good morning, Collins." Evelyn smiled and sat down across from him. "You're in a good mood." He tilted his head. "Are you surprised?" She took a piece of toast and bit into it before answering. "Let's just say it's unusual." John smirked and took a sip of his coffee. So, how do you feel after last night? Evelyn sighed, crossing her arms over the table. To be honest, still a bit confused. Confused. I've never done this before, John. I've never let anyone get this close. He studied her face for a moment before saying, Me neither. Evelyn blinked, surprised. John always seemed so confident. She never imagined he could also be stepping into unknown territory. So does that mean we're… John raised an eyebrow. Together? She took a deep breath. Yes. He set his coffee cup aside and looked her straight in the eyes. If you want to, Collins. She smiled. I do. John leaned over the table. Great then. He took her hand and gently squeezed it. Evelyn felt her heart race, but deep down she knew the battle wasn't over. John's world wasn't an easy place, and some people weren't happy to see them together. That afternoon, as she walked through the hotel, Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine. Since the beginning of the trip, people had been whispering about her, but now something was different. The looks were worse, the expressions more malicious. Then, as she walked past the reception, she overheard two women talking. Did you see the news? Yeah, it's a scandal. Evelyn frowned and grabbed her phone. She opened the browser, and the second she saw the headline, she felt her blood run cold. CEO John Scott, involved in scandalous romance with former housekeeping employee. She clicked on the article, and the shock only grew. According to insider sources, Evelyn Collins, former maid at the Scott Hotel, was taken on a luxurious trip to Paris and promoted under suspicious circumstances. Sources say the young woman may be using her relationship with the CEO to advance in life. Evelyn felt her breath quicken. The article wasn't just gossip, it was a direct attack. Then her phone buzzed. John, where are you? She swallowed and replied. At the reception. Were you at the reception? Minutes later, John appeared, but he didn't look happy at all. He was holding his phone, and the angry look on his face said it all. I'm going to find out who did this. Evelyn let out a humorless laugh. Do you really need to find out? John frowned. What do you mean? She crossed her arms. This has Alice's name written all over it. He pressed his lips together. I figured that. Evelyn took a deep breath. I knew people would talk, but this is different. John took her hand. I'll take care of it. She looked him in the eyes. How? He smiled faintly. My way. That night, John called a press conference at the hotel. When Evelyn entered the room, she saw reporters everywhere, flashes going off, cameras recording. She had never felt so scared in her life. But then she saw John on stage, steady, unshakable. He grabbed the microphone and began, I know a lot of you are here because of the rumors about me and Evelyn Collins, so let me clear something up. The whole room went silent. John looked directly at the cameras. Evelyn Collins wasn't promoted because of her relationship with me. She was promoted because she has undeniable talent, and because she's proven over and over that she deserves her place in this world. Evelyn felt a lump in her throat. John continued, And for those of you who think this is some kind of scandal, I don't care. The reporters exchanged surprised glances. I've never been afraid of public opinion, and I'm not going to start now. He looked at Evelyn. I chose to be with her, and I'm not going to apologize for that. Evelyn felt her eyes burn. John had just put everything on the line for her, and in that moment she realized it didn't matter what they said, it didn't matter what they tried to do, they would face it together. When the press conference ended, John walked over to her. What did you think? Evelyn laughed, feeling her heart race. You're completely crazy, he smiled. And you're still here. She cupped his face in her hands and said without hesitation, Always. And then, without caring about the flashes or who was watching, she kissed him. Because for the first time, Evelyn knew she belonged there, and no one was going to take her from that place. Evelyn never thought her life could change so much in such a short time. A few weeks ago, she was just a cleaning staff member, working during the day and covering night shifts to pay her bills. Now she was in Paris, in John Scott's arms. Her name splashed across the headlines as the woman who won over the billionaire CEO. What once seemed like a distant dream was now her reality, and she had no regrets. Once, the morning after the press conference, Evelyn woke up to her phone buzzing non-stop, messages from Zara, from the hotel staff, from unknown numbers. Some congratulated her, others attacked, calling her an opportunist who just got lucky. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that for the first time she didn't feel alone. When she went down for breakfast, she found John sitting at a table reserved for them as always, but this time he seemed different, more relaxed. "Did you sleep well?" he asked when she sat down. Evelyn grabbed a cup of coffee and smiled. "Better than the past few nights. I bet your name's in every newspaper." She rolled her eyes. "You didn't have to do that press conference, you know." He tilted his head. "I did." Evelyn sighed, picking up a croissant and taking a bite. "You always like to make things more complicated, don't you?" John smiled. "Always." She shook her head, laughing, but her smile faded when she saw a familiar figure entering the restaurant. "Alice!" The blonde looked flawless as always, but her gaze was colder than ever. She walked straight to their table and stopped beside John. "Can we talk?" John took a sip of his coffee and raised an eyebrow. "If it's another one of your speeches, I'm not interested." Alice forced a smile and looked at Evelyn. "It's not a speech. I just want to clear a few things up." Evelyn crossed her arms. "Oh, now you want to talk? After trying to ruin my reputation publicly?" Alice sighed. "Evelyn, understand what I did wasn't personal." Evelyn let out an incredulous laugh. "Oh, really? Spreading lies about me to the world was just a little detail?" Alice pressed her lips together. "They weren't lies. They were inconvenient truths." John leaned back in his chair. "Alice, if you have something to say, just say it." She took a deep breath and looked directly at Evelyn. "You changed the rules of the game. This world doesn't accept change easily. But even though you won this battle, you need to understand there will always be people trying to bring you down." Evelyn kept her gaze steady. "So basically you're telling me to be careful." Alice nodded. "And to prepare yourself. What happened now was just the beginning." John stood up, his tone firm and resolute. "Evelyn doesn't need to worry about anything. She's not alone." Alice looked at him for a long moment, then stepped back. "Good luck to both of you." And with that, she left. Evelyn let out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. John took her hand across the table. "Are you okay?" She looked at him and smiled. "Yes, because I know that no matter what happens, we'll face it together." He squeezed her hand, and in that moment, Evelyn knew nothing could bring them down. The last day in Paris flew by. Evelyn and John attended more events, met more people, and slowly she realized that she was no longer seen as an outsider. People were starting to respect her. On the last night, John took her to dinner at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. The atmosphere was elegant, the food flawless, but Evelyn was more interested in the man in front of her than anything else. "What happens when we go home?" she asked. John held his wine glass and looked at her for a moment before answering. "Do you want to go back to the hotel?" Evelyn hesitated. She'd always worked hard to carve out her space, but now her life had changed. "I love what I do, but I think I'm ready for something new." John smiled. "Then I have a proposal." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." He set his glass down on the table and took her hand. "Work with me. Not as a hotel employee, but as my partner. You've got talent, Evelyn. We can create something together." Her heart raced. "Are you serious?" "I never say anything I don't mean." She took a deep breath. It was a big step, but looking into his eyes, she knew the answer. "I accept." John smiled. "Great choice." They toasted, and that night Evelyn knew her life would never be the same. The plane landed back in the city, and Evelyn took a deep breath as she stepped out of the private jet. She was back to reality, but her reality was different now. As they got into the car, John took her hand. "Are you ready to start this new chapter?" She smiled. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life." He pulled her into a deep kiss, and Evelyn knew her destiny was never just about cleaning hotel rooms. Her destiny was beside John. Evelyn had never imagined her life would take such a different turn, from hard work as a cleaning staff member to becoming an expert in the world of gastronomy alongside one of the most powerful men in the industry. And most of all, she never imagined she'd fall in love along the way. In the past few months, her relationship with John had only grown stronger. They worked together, traveled to various international events, and created an innovative project within the Scott Hotel's empire. But above all, they had each other. And that was all Evelyn needed. Or at least that's what she thought, because John Scott still knew how to surprise her. And that night he was about to prove it. It was a special night. Evelyn and John were at a luxurious restaurant by the sea, one of the most beautiful places they had ever visited together. Soft lights lit up the table reserved for them, and a warm breeze touched their skin. Evelyn looked at John, smiling. "You're unusually quiet." He held his wine glass and watched her for a moment before giving a small smile. "Maybe because I'm waiting for the right moment." She frowned. "The right moment for what?" John just shook his head. "Just wait." Before she could ask anything else, a violinist appeared in the restaurant and started playing a soft melody. The music was beautiful, romantic. Evelyn looked around, feeling her heart race. Something was different that night. Then John took her hand. "Collins." She turned to him, surprised to see that his gaze was more tense than ever. "Do you remember the first time we met?" Evelyn laughed. "Hard to forget. I was sleeping in your bathroom." John smiled. "Yes, and at that moment, I knew my life would never be the same." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. "John." He stood up and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Evelyn held her breath. All the guests in the restaurant went quiet. John knelt in front of her. "You've challenged me from day one. You made me laugh when I thought I'd forgotten how. You showed me that life is so much more than work and status." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not the easiest man in the world, but if there's one thing I've learned since you came into my life, it's that I don't want a future without you." He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring. "Evelyn Collins, will you marry me?" Tears ran down her face, her heart raced, her whole world was spinning, but in the middle of all of it there was only one answer that made sense. "Yes." John smiled, took her hand, and slid the ring onto her finger. He stood up, cupped her face in his hands, and kissed her with all the emotion he felt. The restaurant erupted in applause, but Evelyn could only feel him and the love that filled her entire heart. 2 months later, Evelyn was walking down the aisle of a flower-green garden, dressed in white, holding a bouquet of flowers in her trembling hands. The wedding took place, outdoors at a private estate, with a breathtaking view of the sea. The golden sun was setting on the horizon, creating a scene straight out of a fairy tale, and at the end of the aisle, there he was, John, dressed in an elegant suit with a soft smile and a look full of love. Evelyn felt the tears come before she even reached the altar. Each step she took was a reminder of the journey she had made to get here, where she started, what she had to face, and how, against all expectations, love found a way to transform her. When she reached John, he took her hand and whispered, "You look beautiful." She smiled. "And you're officially stuck with me forever." He chuckled softly, squeezing her hand, and I couldn't be happier about that. The ceremony was emotional. They exchanged heartfelt vows, promises of eternal love, and in the end, the officiant announced, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." John didn't wait a second before taking her in his arms and kissing her deeply. The guests applauded, throwing flower petals over them, and Evelyn knew that this moment would be etched in her memory forever. 2 weeks after the wedding, Evelyn was in the bedroom, staring at a pregnancy test. She blinked a few times. 2 lines. 2. Her heart raced. Oh my God, she was pregnant. A mix of shock and happiness completely overwhelmed her. She and John were going to have a baby. When she heard the bedroom door open, she quickly turned and saw John walking in. "Collins, you need to see this. I just got an invite to—" He stopped when he noticed her expression. He frowned. "What's wrong?" Evelyn took a deep breath. Then she grabbed the test and showed it to him. John looked at the object in her hand, blinked a few times, and frowned, not understanding. But then his eyes widened. "Is this—" Evelyn smiled. "Yes." For a moment he stood still, then he took a step forward, cupped her face in his hands and kissed her with indescribable emotion. When he pulled away, there were tears in his eyes. "We're having a baby!" Evelyn laughed, feeling happiness overflow inside her. "We are." John wrapped his arms around her, holding her gently. "I love you." She smiled, resting her head on his chest. "I love you too." And in that moment she knew this was just the beginning of a new adventure, a new phase of love, growth, and happiness. This time it wasn't just her and John. Now they were a family.